Greetings and welcome to the Compassionate Couch. My name is Majda Ngwaira. Here today with me is Tsitsi Murove, and she will help us to understand more about the science of occupation. Tsitsi, I want to welcome you today. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Maji. How are you?
I am very good. Tsitsi, would you like to tell our viewers a bit about yourself so that we can get started on this?
Thank you, Maji. My name is Tsitsi Murove. I'm an occupational therapist, and I've been practicing occupational therapy for close to about 25, 26 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And I have worked in many different settings of occupational therapy in many different countries, working with people with many different conditions as well. I am a mother and a wife.
Well, that's a lot. But that's really wonderful, Tsitsi. And I know that you love explaining about occupation, and I felt, who can be better suited to actually explain what occupation is to these people so that they can get to understand it? So, because our topic today is the science of occupation, right?
Yes.
What
yes.
comes to your head when you think of the science of occupation?
Yeah, thank you, Maji, for bringing out that subject. When we talk about occupation, and obviously we're going to talk about occupational therapy, and we talk about how occupational science is linked to occupational therapy. So first of all, occupational science in itself is the study of occupation.
Yes.
And for us to understand it further, we need to also maybe define what is occupation itself, because that word is also used in occupational therapy. So occupational therapy is a medical profession where we are using occupation for healing. That's why there are two words, occupational therapy. Therapy is the healing part. So you're using occupation to heal.
Okay, yes, actually, before you go further, because I might understand what occupation is. Can you, because one person would come to me and say, Maji, occupation, is a job, like I am an accountant, I am, yes. So can you please define what the occupation in occupational therapy is, so that at least we are on the same footing?
Okay, so the occupation in occupational therapy, I'll try and explain it in a way that I understand it, probably maybe in a way that our viewers will also understand, because quite often it is a term that is misunderstood, not just by lay people, but also by healthcare professionals, such that the profession of occupational therapy has taken a very long time for it to be accepted within the healthcare fields, professions, because using occupational therapy as a treatment sometimes is not really understood. But from the occupational therapy perspective, what occupation is, when we say occupation, we are talking about doing, right? And if we are talking about doing, in occupational therapy, we do classify occupation into three main categories. So if you're talking about your occupation, we are talking about work.
Yes.
It might be your paid work, your job, like you said, an accountant and stuff. So that is work, paid work. But work is also voluntary work. We also call those people who are doing voluntary work as it is work that they're doing. And then we come to self-care.
Yes.
Self-care, these are things like your activities of daily living. If I'm talking about activities of daily living, I'm talking about things like personal care. Bathing yourself, getting yourself groomed, dressing, toileting. Those are personal self-care activities.
Exactly.
And then within the ADL, because in short, we then call that ADLs, activities of daily living, ADLs. So in most places where you go, if you hear people talking about ADLs, it's mostly associated with occupational therapists. So we're also talking about instrumental activities of daily living. Instrumental activities of daily living, these are your activities that include planning. Yeah, you have bills that need to be paid.
You need to go shopping.
Yes, you need to go shopping. You need to plan that.
Exactly.
Those are things that are also part of activities of daily living. And then we're talking of leisure activities. Leisure activities, these are your activities that you spend your time doing just to please yourself, to maybe make yourself relax
Exactly.
and stuff. So in occupational therapy, when we talk about occupation, that's
Yes.
what we are really talking about. We use work, we use activities of daily living,
Yes.
and we use leisure as medium of treatment. So for us, occupation, it is a means and it is also a goal.
Yes.
So we're using occupational therapy to treat a client, but we are also using it as a goal. That is what we actually want to achieve as well.
Yes.
So that's why it is a very important aspect of our treatment. So it is not occupational health and safety. That is a completely different area altogether.
Yes, that's true.
It does involve some aspects of occupational therapy because there are some occupational therapists
Yes,
who are
that's true.
into occupational health and safety, but they'll be looking at specifically work itself.
Yes.
But there's some aspects of like ergonomics that they're looking at and stuff.
Yes.
But in this definition that I've talked to you about, the general definition,
Yes.
it's occupation. It means activities that people do and that they need to do actually, they want to do,
Yes.
or they're even expected
To do.
to do.
So basically what you're saying here is occupation is a means to an end.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. But
In occupational therapy.
in occupational therapy,
Yes,
exactly.
yes.
So now my next question is, someone would then ask, how then do you bring out the science aspect of the occupation? Where is the science-ness of it? So that's what
Yes. So because occupational therapy as a healthcare professional, as a healthcare profession, so to speak, if you're going to use your treatment medium, you must understand it.
Yes.
You must understand what am I using, because at the end of the day, an occupational therapist should be different from somebody who is a layperson who is just there.
Yes.
Yeah. So it is a science in that you are going to research on it. You're going to have objective information on it,
Yes.
and you're going to have results
Yes.
that you're actually supposed to measure.
Yes.
When I have used a treatment medium, it's occupation, how and why am I using it on this particular person?
Exactly.
So it is supported, occupational therapy is supported by philosophical underpinnings. It is also supported by different paradigms.
Yes.
It is also supported by different theories.
Yes.
In order for you to then pick this occupation or this activity, to say, I'm going to use this activity with this client, you must understand the philosophy of it, the theories that support that, and within the paradigm, it is also fitted. So in that sense, it then becomes a science, because you're not just picking something and you do not understand what it is. So there is a lot that occupational therapists learn when they are training. It actually takes 4 years.
Yes.
To train as an occupational therapist at degree level.
Yes.
And in some countries now, occupational therapy is no longer just, they're no longer taking people to train as undergraduates. They're actually taking to start at master's level.
Oh, okay.
And even in the United States, they have started to train at doctorate level. So it is something that is, you really need to understand because of the complexity of the way occupation is and how it is understood and how you have to bring it in to the treatment session.
Okay. So when would you say that when you're looking at it as occupation, as a science, when would you say that you use it for a person, right? Because naturally, like you're saying, that it's a science and it has to be measurable. Those are your SMART goals that you need to have, your objectives that you need to set. But the question then comes in, how then, after the science, do you then apply it into a person's life?
Okay. Maybe in order for me to clearly answer that question, maybe I need to give you like an example.
Perfect.
Of a person who probably will be benefiting from an occupational therapy treatment.
Yes.
So let's say, for example, somebody has had a stroke. Yeah, stroke. So if that person is now referred for occupational therapy treatment, what the occupational therapist will do is to now sit down with the person and do a thorough full assessment. In the assessment, what the occupational therapist is looking out for is trying to understand how this person's occupation has been affected. So in other words, we're saying this person is now facing occupational dysfunction, in the sense that the person with a stroke, they now probably maybe have their right side paralyzed or their left side is paralyzed. So with that paralysis, it means that side that has been affected is no longer able to participate in the activities that this person is supposed to do in terms of their work. We're going back to that. In terms of their work, probably they were an accountant. Yeah. And now they've got left side paralysis. They're an accountant. They still need to go to work, right? So we look at how this paralysis has affected this person's areas of work, of occupation, right? And then we look at how has this paralysis affected their activities of daily living, their self-care, in terms of being able to bathe themselves, in terms of being able to toilet, dress themselves, groom themselves, feed themselves. Yeah. So we look at all those areas, and then we also look at how has this paralysis affected them in terms of them being able to participate in leisure activities, because it's very important. That is also if that person was involved in leisure activities. So in order for an occupational therapist now to come up with a treatment plan, they need to look at all of these areas. But they also do that in relation to, we use what is called client-centered practice. You have to involve the client into all of this, because you have to understand the history of where this client is coming from. You have to understand their past medical histories. You have to understand their social history as well. And you also have to understand their work as well. And what do they spend their time doing? You have to understand their interests, what motivates them. There's just a whole lot of things that you're looking at. And when you look at all of those things, now you have put them in paper, you now sit down with the client and say, look at all of these problems that we have. Some of the problems are stemming from the paralysis itself. That's a physical condition that is there. And then some of them are also emanating from the psychosocial aspect. Because imagine a person has been going on about doing their business, daily activities, every day, normally. And all of a sudden, there's cerebrovascular accident. The stroke is called a cerebrovascular accident. It is an accident. You didn't plan for it. It just happened. So this accident has happened. Their life is completely shattered or changed. So you're looking at all of those aspects now with the client and saying, looking realistically into the potentials that they have, and looking at, in order for them to go back to the place where they probably were, what do we need to do? So as occupational therapists, when we've looked at all of this, our philosophy of thinking looks at the person, it looks at the occupation, and then it also looks at the environment in which this person is operating in. So when you've got your list of problems, you've got whatever, everything you have, you then look at which problems are emanating from the person, which ones are emanating from the occupation itself, and which ones are emanating from just the environment. And then you bring everything together for you to then come up with a treatment plan. And your treatment plan as well has got to be prioritized in relation to the client, because it's client-centered. The client is the one who tells you, this is what is most important to me. This is what I want to be able to do in this particular. If I'm able to at least maybe get up from this chair and be able to walk myself to the toilet and use the toilet independently, then I'm fine.
When you actually said to be able to do, usually when people ask me what is occupational therapy, I just tell them it's doing therapy. It's a therapy where you're doing something for you to be able to be healed. But then I actually had another question in line with when you're mentioning the areas that a person then comes or is related to. You mentioned the work, you mentioned the leisure, you mentioned the self-care. I figured that this also then has a bearing on someone's religious perspective as well. Why am I saying this? You have a person who's not able to go to the toilet on their own. How then are they able to then go to church, right? Yes, we do have the online church, but there's nothing that beats fellowship together. Just seeing a person there singing also uplifts your mood, you know. And when when you're in church, people say, "Turn to your neighbor." Say, "Neighbor." Exactly. You know, that actually brings out an aspect of being at home. And this, like you're saying, what someone holds dear to them, right? So I actually wanted to give an example of, when you have a patient, you actually see that sometimes if you include religious activities in their treatment session, it becomes easier for them to be motivated. So yes, I actually wanted then for us to bring out the aspect of how does occupational dysfunction affect one's religious inclination? Because if I'm not mistaken, there's actually one fundamental belief that actually then moves and says we have to look at the person. They say that the person exists as a unity between the body, the mind, and the soul, right? So now you're coming and saying if there's a dysfunction, like you're explaining the person, the environment, and the occupation. If there's a dysfunction between the body, the mind, and the soul, likewise there is a dysfunction within the human being as well.
Spirit,
and exactly, the spirit as well. That's when you then notice you have someone who, let's bring our depression into consideration. You now have your person with depression because of a cerebral vascular accident. Exactly. You now have that. And now you're coming in and you're saying, we want to be able to have a person, because ultimately what we are hoping for is that everyone receives, or Christ takes them to heaven at the second coming, Yes. So how then is that possible? How then does this come to help a person to say, we need you to be physically okay, we need you to be spiritually okay, we need you to be mentally okay as well? How then does it come into play? How would you look at it from an occupational therapy perspective, so to say?
Yeah, thank you, Basiji, for bringing that one up.
Yes.
In occupational therapy, that is a very important aspect of our treatment.
Yes.
Within the philosophies and the theories of occupational therapy that we use, we've got many different theories. I'll talk specifically of this particular theory, which we use, which is called the Canadian model of occupational performance and engagement.
Yes.
That particular model of practice, it looks at the person, it looks at the occupation, it looks at the environment, but at the center of it all, you know when you're actually drawing the diagram for it, because there's a diagram for it, at the center of it there's spirituality.
Exactly.
And in occupational therapy, when we talk about spirituality, we're not talking about religion. We're really talking about identity.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about. Because religions are different. There are people who are Muslims, there are people who are Christians, there are people who are Buddhists, there are people who are, and you'll find all of these people in your bag of clients. So if you want to then like say these are Christians, these are Muslims, these are whatever, then it also affect the way you deal with them. So spirituality, because spirituality is at the center
of every person,
of human existence.
Exactly.
That's where it is. So you cannot leave it out in your treatment sessions. So as an occupational therapist, you need to have knowledge of all of these, maybe different religions, and understand how they affect that person's spirituality, the way they identify themselves, the way, because spirituality also motivates the kind of occupations even that you do.
Exactly.
Say, for example, a person who's a Muslim, they have had a stroke, they need to worship 5 times a day.
Exactly.
So in that sense, as an occupational therapist, your role is now to enable them to see how they can actually be able to participate within these spiritual activities that are so important to them. I'll give you an example of one of my clients. She's got a stroke, left-sided paralysis, and she wants to go to church.
Yes.
There is no way you're going to tell her you're not going to go to church. But we're facing many difficult challenges physically and psychologically.
Yes.
We're facing issues with transfers, getting up from the chair that she's sitting to stand and then to go into the wheelchair. And then transfers from the wheelchair into the car, from the car into the wheelchair, and for her to be able to take her wheelchair into church.
Exactly.
So when she talked to me about wanting to go to church, we sat down and we looked at all the different activities that are needed, different tasks, different hurdles that she has to overcome in order for her to then sit in church.
Exactly.
So that is the job, that is what the occupational therapist will do. So we'll look at all of those tasks, all of those actions, all of those activities to now say, now we are sitting in church. What does it take?
Exactly.
It takes you to be able to lift yourself or to transfer yourself from the bed to go into the bathroom, take a shower, bath yourself, dress yourself.
Exactly.
From there, sit on the wheelchair, sit in the car, and then go to church.
Exactly.
So you look at all those tasks, all those actions, and you go through them and say, this one we are not able to do it. Let's do it this way.
Exactly.
So that you're now able to accomplish the major goal of sitting in church. Because that's the goal.
Yes.
We want X to be able to sit in church.
Yes.
Maybe that'll probably be the goal on Sunday or on Saturday or whatever. So in order for us to reach that goal, what are the activities that we need to do? So we go through one by one. And then you'll find out that there are some activities that even if you practice, by next week, she will not be able to do them. But she still needs to be in church.
Yes.
Right? So what do? That's when you look at the environment. Then that's when you start looking at adaptations. Because that's one other major aspect of occupational therapy. When somebody is not able to do something, we're still working towards goals and stuff like that. We also bring in issues to do with adaptation. How do we adapt these clothes?
Exactly.
So that you're able to put them on with minimal difficulties or independently with adaptations done. How are you able to transfer yourself from the wheelchair into the car with adaptations? That's why you find occupational therapists, we know a lot about assistive devices. We call them assistive devices.
Yes.
Yeah. Probably maybe you've got a button hook that a person can use to button up the
shirt, blouse.
Yes. And on the toilet, we also adapt the toilet so that they're able to sit on the toilet, raise it up, put a toilet seat raiser, put grab rails around it, so that even though they're still going through their therapy, they're still able to use the toilet.
Exactly.
When they go into the car, you put maybe their hoist that can be used for a person to get in and out of the car. They transfer discs, they transfer boards that can be used for all of those things. So with this client, we went through all of that. And we needed some aids and appliances. Fortunately, she had relatives who were able to buy those aids and appliances.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we bought aids and appliances. We raised your toilet. We put grab rails around your toilet. We managed to also adapt her shower area so that she's able to sit while she's taking a shower. She sits down, take a shower, is able to open with a hand that is functional and be able to wash yourself with or without assistance. And you don't even know how that motivated her to want to do more.
Exactly.
Yeah. And then she was now able to get in and out of the car, and she was actually able to go to church. And now she has actually reached a stage where she's actually leaving the wheelchair at home. and going to church with just using a walking stick.
Yes.
And it is also because she feels motivated spiritually herself.
Yes.
Because that activity, that it did not stop for her going to church, despite the difficulties that she had. She did not stop going to church. And you can see that element of spirituality motivating her and driving her to be able to want to do more.
Yes.
And there's also the aspect that I want people at church for them to see me do this, to them to see me do. So as occupational therapists, we are also using that behind the scenes.
Exactly.
To use it as motivators.
It's more like the fuel to the treatment.
Exactly. So we don't leave spirituality out.
Yes.
It's a very important aspect of our treatment. And even if you look in the Bible, the Bible, after Adam and Eve had sinned, God said to them, give them instruction.
Yes.
You are supposed to till the land. You are supposed to work.
Yes.
And that is what we are supposed to do as human beings. Once you stop working, once you stop doing, let me use the word doing. Once you stop doing as a human being, you actually start inviting illnesses upon yourself. So as occupational therapists, what we're just trying to do is we're trying to encourage people, even when they are facing difficulties of illness, through physical problems, through psychological problems, they're having mental issues going on, we still encourage them to participate in occupation. That is why it is occupational therapy. And we understand human beings as doing beings in occupational therapy.
I love the fact that you're bringing out the holistic aspect of a person. You're not just saying, you know what, I'm choosing to focus on this area of a person. I'm choosing to say, you know what, even going to church, I want to know how you go to church. Do you want to go to church? What is it that motivates you? What is it that drives you? And I am, from when you're talking, I see that there's a lot of humanistic it's more like a humanistic approach of living, where you're saying, instead of giving you, where I'm removing the aspect of the doing, right? If I give you, you know, basically what you're saying about occupational therapy is you're taking the child to the river and saying, this is how you fish. And it's teaching them how to fish, right? If you knew how to fish before, you're saying, you know what, if you're in these waters now, this is how you fish this side.
Exactly.
Do you have any parting words for us as we are now rounding up the segment? This was very insightful.
Maybe let me just highlight the fact that occupational therapy is very immersed in humanistic, philosophical ways of thinking. Even if you read about the history of occupational therapy, you understand that in the beginning of occupational therapy, we are talking about in the 1870s, we're talking about during that time, when, you know, medical profession was not even as advanced as it was. Occupational therapy was there, but in that time, in that period, it was known as moral treatment. Occupational therapy was used as work cure. So the moral treatment aspect of it was very much immersed in the humanistic principles of healing. So these are the principles that we have even taken from then to now, where we are in this paradigm that we call the occupation paradigm. And that's why we're even talking about occupation and occupational science, because there was a time when occupational therapy at some stage within the early 1900s and stuff, occupational therapy sort of missed its mark and started being very mechanistic in the way that they were treating patients because of this scientific aspect as well, because they wanted to be more very scientific, but they left the moral aspect of treatment. But we've gone back to our senses now. So we are now using occupation in treatment, which is so immersed in humanistic principles of living and more so spirituality as well.
All right. Thank you so much, Tsitsi, and thank you so much for joining us today. Don't forget to join us next week, same time, same place.